All right, let's jump right into a question that's at the very heart of chemistry. How do you actually weigh something you can't see, you can't touch, and you definitely can't put on a scale? We're talking about atoms and molecules, so let's get into it.
So let me just ask you, straight up, how would you do it? How do you weigh one single atom? I mean, think about it. It's a pretty wild problem, right? They're just so unbelievably tiny.
And yeah, that's the fundamental challenge chemists were up against for a very long time. The mass of one atom is so vanishingly small that weighing it directly is, well, it's completely out of the question. Which brings us to our first section here, weighing the unweighable. We're going to look at how chemists crack this puzzle with a solution that honestly underpins just about every chemical calculation we still do today.
You know, this wasn't just some abstract academic question. Chemistry has always been about making stuff. For thousands of years, people have been mixing things to get new materials. And if you're trying to make something, you gotta get the recipe right. You have to mix your ingredients in the correct amounts. Otherwise, you're just wasting stuff. So finding a way to weigh atoms was a really practical and essential problem to solve.
So what do you do if you can't weigh one thing directly? Well, the next best thing is to compare it to something else. And that's exactly the brilliant workaround chemists came up with. They decided to pick one atom to be the universal standard, the anchor for everything else. And the atom they chose was carbon-12.
And this is the result, a concept called relative atomic mass, which we call R. Now, notice the word relative. We're not talking about grams or kilograms here. It's all a comparison. We're measuring the mass of other atoms relative to a single atom of carbon-12. And this is the magic number. By international agreement, one single atom of carbon-12 has been assigned a mass of exactly 12. That's it. That's the bedrock. Every single other atom on the periodic table gets its mass value by being compared to this one standard.
Now, you probably looked at a periodic table and wondered why so many of the atomic masses are weird decimals. This slide explains it perfectly. For an element like hydrogen, the mass is super close to 1 because almost all hydrogen atoms are the same. But then you look at chlorine, and its mass is 35.5. What gives? Well, it's because natural chlorine is actually a mixture of two different types or isotopes. You've got lighter chlorine-35 atoms and heavier chlorine-37 atoms. That 35.5 is just the weighted average of that natural mix. And just so we're crystal clear on the terms, we can also talk about relative isotopic mass. So while the relative atomic mass is the average for the whole element, the isotopic mass is the mass of one specific flavor of that atom, like chlorine-35, or in this example, carbon-13. Okay, so we've got a system for measuring the mass of individual elements. That's a huge step. But what about when we start sticking them together to make molecules? Well, let's see how this all builds. The great news is, it's really, really simple. To find the relative molecular mass, or MR, you'll literally just add up the atomic masses of all the atoms in the molecule. So for methane, CH4, you've got one carbon, which is 12, and 4 hydrogens, which are each 1. Add it all together, 1 times 12 plus 4 times 1, and you get an MR of 16. Easy! And the same exact logic works for ionic compounds too. We sometimes call it relative formula mass, but we still use the same symbol, MR. So for magnesium hydroxide, we have one magnesium, which is 24.3, and then we have 2 of those OH groups. So we figure out the mass of one OH, that's 16 for the oxygen plus 1 for the hydrogen, so 17. We've got 2 of them, so that's 34. Add the 34 to the 24.3, and you get 58.3. See? Same process. Okay, so this all makes sense if you know which isotopes exist and how common they are. But how do we know that? How do we get that data in the first place? Well, for that, we need a very special piece of kit. Let's call it the atomic sorting machine. The key to all of this data, the source of truth, is an amazing instrument called a mass spectrometer. This is the high-tech machine that can take a sample of an element and tell us exactly which isotopes are in there and in what proportion. It's incredible. So how does this thing work? Well, in a nutshell, you take your sample and you turn it into a gas. Then you knock an electron off each atom to turn them into positive ions. Then you shoot these ions into a magnetic field. And here's the really clever part. Lighter ions get bent more by the magnet than heavier ions do, so they follow different paths. At the end, a detector counts how many ions of each mass hit it, and that gives you your data.
So, the machine gives us this beautiful chart called a mass spectrum that's just loaded with information. So let's move on and figure out how to read it. It's time for decoding the spectrum.
And this is exactly what you get. This is the data for a sample of lead. It tells us there are 4 main isotopes, with masses of 204, 206, 207, and 208. And, most importantly, it tells us how much of each there is. You can see right away that the lead-208 isotope is the big winner, making up over half the sample at 52%. Once you have this data, calculating the overall relative atomic mass is just a simple 3-step recipe. You multiply each isotope's mass by its percentage, you add up all those products, and then you just divide the whole thing by 100 to get that nice weighted average.
So let's do a real one with neon. The mass spectrometer tells us it's got 3 main isotopes. You can see neon-20 is by far the most common at almost 91%. Then you have a tiny amount of neon-21 and about 9% of neon-22.
And here's the calculation. You just plug in the numbers. You take 20 times its 90.9%, plus 21 times its tiny 0.3%, plus 22 times its 8.8%. Add all that up, divide by 100, and you get 20.2 for the relative atomic mass of neon. And it makes perfect sense that the answer is close to 20 because the neon-20 isotope was the most abundant by a long shot. So let's bring it all back. The main takeaway here is pretty cool. We started with what seemed like an impossible problem, weighing a single atom. But by inventing this clever relative scale, anchored to carbon-12, chemists found a way to work with atoms and molecules with incredible precision, all without ever putting a single one on a scale. But that leads to one final fascinating thought. This whole relative system was an ingenious workaround for a technological limit. But today we have amazing microscopes that can literally let us see individual atoms. So, does that mean that someday we might ditch the relative scale and create a whole new system based on the direct, absolute measurement of an atom's mass? It's a really interesting question for the future of chemistry, isn't it?
Important terminology for this topic is shown on the screen, arranged according to various exam boards. These terms demand focused attention during revision as they are highly significant and must never be overlooked. Furthermore, a past paper evaluation is included for each board and paper format. Give this paper attention too, since it will strongly enhance and refine your preparation. Additionally, aims to grasp the meaning and usage of every term instead of rote learning them individually. Consistent practice of these terms in past paper questions will greatly boost your precision and overall exam results.
Please subscribe our channel to get more educational videos. Thank you.